Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching the F&O Show on Bloomberg Quint, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I'm Navneet Saluja D'Souza.
Good morning, Navneet. I'm Agam Akil. Let's take a look at the headlines. September series begins on a positive note for Indian markets. The Nifty trades around the 11,000 mark, above its 20-daily moving average. The IT index is the only sectoral loser today. And open interest has surged in Hindustan Zinc and Arvind. Fresh longs are seen in those stocks. Hindalco is among the top gainers on the Nifty after Reuters reported that the European Commission is set to give an approval to the $2.6 billion Novelis Aleris deal. And Group Finance is trading with strong gains after HDFC sold 9.2% stake via multiple block deals.
All right, so those are the top headlines for you at this hour. Let's also tell you what's happening with the futures and options market. By the way, this is the special edition of the F&O Show where we will be covering rollovers for you in depth and also getting you some top picks from Amit Shah, who will be joining us on the show. But before that, some breather after the fall that we've seen in the last two trading sessions. Nifty is trading around the mark of 11,000 right now, 0.5% higher for Nifty. Sensex up about 170 points. The Bank Nifty, which underperformed in the August series, is bouncing back now. It's trading with gains of about nearly 200 points right now. And for the broader markets as well, we have seen some bit of momentum coming back. The mid-cap as well as the small-cap indices will just come up on your screen, and the market breadth will also come up. So, yeah, the bounce back is seen for both the broader markets as well as the benchmark indices. Mid-cap, small-cap indices seeing gains of of almost 0.6%. And the market breadth is also in favor of the advances. So, we're starting the September series at least on a positive note. But let me also address how the FI setup has been looking at the start of the series. They've started the series once again on a net short basis, because if you look at the index futures, they are net short, net long to the tune of only about 31%, and compare that to the August series, they started it with being net long of about 41%. If you go by the index options data so far at the start of the series, they've bought more of puts and they've also written more of calls. So that's telling you that they have taken more of short positions at the start of the September series. And remember, even in the August series, we did see a lot of short positions being added by the FIs on both the index futures as well as the index option side. Before we proceed, just a bit of trivia. After the August series has been concluded, this was the third straight series of calendar year 2019 where both Nifty and Bank Nifty have registered losses, as you can see on your screen. And of course, the volatility also went up by about 30% after correcting in the last two series. And Nifty has had just one instance of 4 consecutive negative series, and this is since the time F&O has been started by a National Stock Exchange. There were 5 times it had 3 consecutive negative expiries, which also includes, by the way, the August expiry of 2019. And the 3 consecutive expiries are usually followed by 2% gains, but we still have to wait and watch whether this will be the 4th consecutive negative series or Nifty is poised to bounce back again.
All right. Well, there you have it. Some ideas that you may be able to draw from the data that we've already spoken about. But there's plenty more to keep an eye on. But let's talk about stocks too, and perhaps those which are seeing a good start, at least in terms of accumulation and open interest today. So we do have Hindustan Zinc, Torrent Pharma, Ujjivan Financial, all of them advancing, though Ujjivan, marginally. But there is an increase in open interest in some of these names. There's some strength returning as far as Hindustan Zinc and Torrent Pharma is concerned. But we also have the likes of Arvind and Apollo Hospitals, which remain in focus. Apollo Hospitals specifically, which has trended higher of late. So we'll be watching out for that, though it's moving marginally in today's day of trade. What about stocks which are seeing unwinding in today's day of trade? There won't be too many because it is the new series, but we do have the likes of CESC, NMDC, marginal declines there. So we don't have too much to speak about there. On the whole, some of these names that we can watch out for in today's day of trade.
Okay, so those are the stock futures to watch out for. But before we get our guest in the show, here's a reminder for you all. If you have any queries for today's session, at least on the rollover side and how the markets are poised to, for the September series, you can call us now on 022-4540-4141. In fact, you can also write to us on our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with AskPQ hashtag.
There you have it, guys. Well, and it's time to get in our experts for the day then. We have Amit Shah of Bob Capital Markets joining us in the studio, as usual, with the futures and options roundup. Amit, thanks for taking the time out and welcome back. Let's start off with the basics. Let's start with the benchmarks. Your view here and what your observation has been when it comes to the rollovers.
Well, so the start of the August series, we have seen that market had been consistently heading downside. We're making a lower top, lower bottom formation. Since the start of the August series, 11,300 is where the Nifty started. We witnessed a low of 10,630 odd, and again, it is hovering around the 11,000 odd range. So if you look at the overall index on the Nifty side, the rollovers on the open interest side is seen in line. So last series, we started with a base of around 1 crore 79 lakh shares. Even for the September, this series, we are starting with a base of 1 crore 80 odd lakh shares.
Right.
So if you look at the open interest base, there is not much of a change which has happened. However, during the August series, we had seen a significant amount of short positions where the OI had been shooted up to close to 2 crore 23 lakh odd shares. And again, we saw some liquidation of those short positions. But if you look at the rollover analysis with the price, what it has reacted in the last week of expiry, the last 2 days have been quite favoring on the negative side, where the open interest has increased close to around 1 crore 5 lakh shares in the last 2 days. And the price we have seen, it has corrected quite sharply, close to around 200 odd points. So this suggests that there has been some fresh addition of short positions which have directly been added to the September contracts compared to what we have seen in the August series. So though the open interest is not showing much of a difference, but if you see the open interest, the rollover percentage comparison, the last series it was at 73.7%. If you see this series, it is at 68.8%. So the fall in rollover percentage is mainly on account of the heavy addition of short positions which has been seen in the September series.
Right.
Okay, so that's about the Nifty rollover. Basically, you're suggesting in terms of open interest, we're just about in line with August, but in terms of percentage, I think the rollovers have been on the lower side.
Yes.
And the picture actually remains the same for Bank Nifty, which underperformed, I guess, for the August series.
So Bank Nifty has corrected close to around 6% against Nifty, which corrected 2.7% the last August series. And if you look at the open interest, though the open interest base is slightly lower for Bank Nifty, so 15 lakh shares have been rolled over. So that's the base from the start of this series, and compared to the previous base of 14 lakh odd shares. So this clearly shows that there has been a significant amount of short positions which have been added. However, if you look at the percentage comparison, again, Bank Nifty is on the lower side, which is at 66% against 76% odd. So that also has been because of the fresh addition of short positions we were seeing the inception of the September series. So this is on both these indices, I feel, are heavily under pressure and can see some kind of an underperformance in coming times.
Would you also then say that Bank Nifty is the one which is witnessing more of short positions because it's been underperforming?
So it is indeed. So in the last 2 expiries, in fact, Bank Nifty has been underperforming. Even the last series, we saw Bank Nifty correcting close to around 7%. And even this time it has corrected over 6%. And looking at the overall stock components within the Bank Nifty, the rollovers have not been that impressive.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to mark out the fact that the Nifty has come off from day's highs, and well, volumes have been largely average. But that said, that we just started with 1 hour of trade, and we're starting to look a little nervy here. So keep an eye on that one. Of course, that said, Amit, let's talk about the information technology, index as well, because that's something you very closely watch. How are you seeing trends here?
So see, overall, the Nifty IT has seen some outperformance. It ended on a positive note for the August series, close to 2.5% odd. But if you look at the rollovers, it was mainly on the short which were not carried forward, and some kind of a liquidation of long positions. So the open interest, it's quite on the lower base. But if you look at the price, it is more suggesting on the short covering side. So I feel still there is room for Nifty IT to show outperformance against these 2 indices.
Okay, in fact, Nifty IT was up about 2.6% for the August series, and we have seen outperformance coming in. In fact, in the month of August, you also had the rupee, which is weakened about 4%, which in a way creates a bit of tailwind for these IT companies. So we've covered Nifty, Bank Nifty, and Nifty IT. For Nifty IT specifically, as Amit highlighted, in terms of open interest, I think it's at the lower side compared to August series as well. But Amit, market-wide rollovers. Now, this is interesting because this takes into account the listed, the entire stock futures space around 161 stocks. How did the rollovers pan out for that?
So this has been a biggest pain in last 6 to 7 months. We have not seen market breadth improvising despite even during election, then market touching the all-time high of close to around 12,100 odd. So even this time the market breadth has disappointed. It has been in perfectly correlation with the way index has performed. So the market breadth, if you consider the open interest base for the overall stock is around 394 crore shares compared to 374 crore shares.
Right.
So there has been a substantial rise of close to around 20 crore odd shares. And if I compare this data with the overall advance to decline for the August, how stocks have performed in the August series, there were only 103 stocks there were only 58 stocks rather which advanced against 103 stocks which declined. So this clearly shows a ratio of 2:1 on the advance to decline close to. And with the open interest also building much wider base, this shows that the short additions on the stock side is still intact.
In fact, the market breadth, Amit, since the time we've been, covering the rollover, analyzing it, I think for the last 5 series now, the market breadth has been very, very weak for the entire stock futures space that Amit was just highlighting. So, which is, of course, indicating there are more of short positions being taken here. In fact, for the setup for September also, as Amit highlighted, the open interest is higher as compared to the August series. But let's now move on to these sectors and ask him which are the sectors first, Amit, tell us, which are witnessing positive rollovers for this series.
So it's only the consumer goods. In the last series also I had mentioned that consumer goods can see some outperformance, and it has seen good rollovers to the September series as well. We saw good within that stock component also showing a good outperformance. We saw Nestle creating a 50 to all-time high levels. Tata Global, Marico also at all-time high. So I feel consumer goods has seen good rollovers. It will continue to outperform the broader markets. This also acts like a defensive where market is overall struggling to cross the 11,000 meter on a sustained basis.
Right.
So we always normally see that these of the defensive stocks always get some buying traction. So I'll continue to be positive on consumer goods. Oil and gas is the another sector which has seen a good size of positive roller, especially from Petronet, Reliance and IGL.
Okay, so that's the strong rollovers, Amit. But what about the negative aspect of things? What about those sectors which look patchy?
So auto ancillary, I believe it's been the third consecutive series where I've been negative. And even if you look at the overall rollovers, except for 1 or 2 stocks, the entire patch has been quite vulnerable.
Right.
So I feel it will continue to underperform. There has been a selling pressure on every rise. So this counter can be treated as underperformance for the September series. Even the private bank and the PSU banks this time, earlier we saw some kind of attraction in PSU banks the previous series, but the way the structures have breakdown, the rollovers were seen on the negative side for both private as well as PSU banking counters.
Okay.
Other 2 sectors which have negative rolls are construction and metals.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the negative ones. Auto, banks, which include both private as well as the PSU side, and alongside that you also have construction and metals. By the way, the Nifty metals index for the August series was down 16%. There is major underperformance which we've seen for all these metal companies in the last month. But what about the neutral side then? Which are the sectors where you're witnessing just about neutral rollovers?
So though IT has seen some outperformance compared to the other 2 indices, but if you look at the stock components, it was a mixture of trade within the stock components in the IT space. So I feel IT can still see some neutral action and supported by pharma. So even for pharma, we saw some positive rollovers happening in pharma and healthcare, of course, together. So Apollo Hospital, some positive was seen in DV's lab, negative was seen in Cipla. So there is a combination of good as well as bad in both these two sectors. So I believe they will remain neutral for the September series.
So you don't expect any sort of major moves for these pharma and IT
Very
stocks?
selective counters maybe out of these pack.
Okay.
All right. So we can talk about stocks now, I suppose. Amit, what's looking interesting to you here?
So last series, I think there is not much of a stock change on the positive side. We had recommended last time also ICICI Pru, Asian Paints, and some of the other stocks which have seen some outperformance. So I continue to reiterate on ICICI Pru and Asian Paints. These two are my first two preferred stocks at this stage. I feel ICICI Pru has more potential from here on towards 460 to 480 odd levels. And Asian Paints is in a good uptrend, making a higher top, higher bottom formation. Asian Paints along with Berger Paints and Pidilite, all these three counters have seen substantial rollovers. Out of the three, I would choose Asian Paints.
Right.
The other stock in the consumption is Nestle. Now Nestle, Dabur as well as HUL and Tata Global have seen good rollovers. I'll prefer to go with Nestle as a top pick. In the IT pack, there is HCL Tech, which has seen good rollovers. And in the oil and gas space, I prefer to go long one Petronet.
Okay, so those are the top picks for the September series. ICICI Prudential, which has been trading around its all-time high levels, and so is the case for Asian Paints and Nestle, which will be included in Nifty come September 27 after the September series expires, and HCL and Petronet LNG2, which has been trading at 52-week high. Amit, but on the short side, what are your top bets? I think you've chosen 6 stocks.
Yeah, so the most important is Kotak Bank, which I would like to first discuss about. Now the stock since May, it has been taking multiple supports around 1440 odd level. It has taken this support thrice since May 2019 onwards. And this support has been violated today, either a whipsaw or maybe we can see some follow-up selling pressure which can come from here on. So the more it sustains below 1440, I believe Kotak Bank can see some significant underperformance. The rollovers have been on the negative side. If you look at the percentage terms, previous month the rollovers were 80%, which is now at 88% odd.
Yeah.
So there has been a rise in the rollovers, so which is on the short side because in the last 3 days, the gains were completely given from 1520 to 1440 odd levels.
Absolutely.
So if it violates 1440 until the time it not crosses 1500, I feel there can be some weakness in this counter where on the downside it can drag towards 1400 to 1380 odd levels on the lower side. My other negative stocks are in the auto ancillary space. Amar Raja Battery will continue to remain on the lowest. We can see some weakness on the PSU banking, Bank India. We had recommended last time as well on the weaker counter. I'll again reiterate that the stock can see further downside from here on. Cummins is another space where I feel there can be more room towards 7 to 8% on the negative on the downside. And Vedanta and Wipro are the other to list. So Wipro is one on the negative side. I have HCL Tech, one on the positive side. So it's a good kind of a pair trade combination where in the IT pack where one can trade. Considering the rollovers also have been suggesting neutral.
Okay, so these are various stocks, sectors, and of course indices that we've discussed. So on that note, before we go on to our viewer queries, Amit, I'd like to take a few concluding thoughts from you about the outlook in general, and perhaps you could give us some levels to work with as well.
Yeah. So if I purely consider the open interest distributions since the start of the September series, if you look at the spread, maximum call writers are at 11,700, followed by 11,200. Maximum put writers are still at 11,000 despite Nifty closing below the 11,000 mark.
Right.
So it's in the money where the maximum call put writers are located, and followed by 10,600.
Right.
So I feel in the coming few days, depending on the market level where it is holding on, I feel the maximum open interest traction will narrow down where we will see the call writers moving close to around 11,200 and the put writers at 10,000, settling at 10,600, which was earlier the support level. So technically 11,150 is a very critical level. In the August series itself, Nifty has attempted on 4 occasions to cross that mark, but all the 4 occasions it was thrown back sharply from those levels. So that becomes a critical resistance mark for the overall Nifty. Now if you look at the Nifty chart from a 3-year perspective since 2017 onwards, and if you consider the October 2017 lows joining to March 2018 odd lows, you will see that the intermediate trend line had been violated in the August series, where intermediate trend line support was at 10,700, and we saw a whipsaw getting created and market reversed from those levels. So that becomes a very critical level to watch out for the September series. In case if Nifty violates 10,700 this time, this would be a violation of the critical intermediate trendline support, where the next support from there on will be close to around 10,300 to 10,200. And in case if market has to show this support and respect this support level, it needs to cross quickly above 11,150. So that would be my critical range for Nifty. If it crosses 11,150, we can anticipate further pullback towards 11,400.
So you're suggesting the first level on the upside to be crossed will be 11,150, which of course we were trying many times in August series. The low of the August was, I believe, 10,635 or 37.
Yes, 637.
So what would be the support, 700 or the recent low that we've seen?
So my momentum support is actually at 10,900. In case if it breaks 10,900, then the probability of breaking the support of 10,700 will be higher. So though 10,700 is a trendline support, but the momentum will on the pullback, what it is attempting, can die out soon if it violates 10,900.
Okay, so those are the key levels that Amit is suggesting for September series. On the upside, first resistance at 11,150. If that gets crossed, probably you can see 11,400. And for support that he will be watching out will be the 10,900. All right, so that was the rollover analysis for you, and also Amit's top picks for the September series. But let's get going and also address some viewer queries. Anand writes to us on YouTube. He's asking, he has a query, by the way, on RBL Bank. He's asking if our expert will recommend buying the futures at levels of about 310. Can we just pull up the futures rate of RBL Bank? Because this was the stock which has been really volatile. It stumbled a lot after the first quarter numbers as well. And I think on one of the days we did see an intraday fall of about 16 to 17%, though it recovered from those levels. Would you suggest buying at lower levels? Has it bottomed out?
Stay away from the falling knife. I always have a discomfort with the intensity of the fall. Fall is good as a retracement, but if there is an intensity in the fall violating critical support levels, then always it's a caution mark. So I would not recommend to buy at these levels. In fact, there is a lot of volatility which can be anticipated in this kind of a structure. So on every rise, there is multiple resistances which the counter can witness. So even from a short-term perspective, the risk of trading it's quite high. The stop loss range would fall close to around 4 to 5%. And on a positional front, the risk to reward also it's not matching, considering the intensity of the fall. In case if it violates 300 this time, I believe there is more room towards 240 levels on the lower side.
All right. Let's move on and take another interesting question. This is on the Nifty Bank. The question is from Shekhat. He writes to us on YouTube. He says that he holds the Nifty Bank 27,600 call September 5th. That is the expiry this coming week. He says, can I hold this position or can I take a hedge? That's the question he wants to know about. So there you have it. The premium, of course, is at 222. Amit, how would you address this?
See, 28,200 is where the resistance is. So in case if the trader wants to convert this into a bull call spread, that could be a call option which he can consider to sell. However, with the naked vanilla option open, I would recommend a strict stop loss of 27,100 to hold on to this position.
Okay, that's a Nifty Bank. And interestingly, we've got a query on NIT Tech. If you could just pull up the futures, the September futures. We did discuss this stock even for our closing show and countdown yesterday, that how the futures have been trading at a very steep discount. Yesterday, the discount was somewhere about 130 points, and today it is come down to almost 100 points. And as you can see, the underlying is down 3%, but the futures are just about flat to marginally trading in the positive territory. What's happening here? Why the futures have been trading at such a steep discount? Does it warrant to create a short on this one?
I don't see any kind of a short positions. It is not reflecting anywhere on the rollover side. However, if you look at technically, the stock is in a very good comfort level. Though the gap today on the future segment is slightly disturbing, but if I look on a positional perspective, the stock has a very good support around 1320 to 1350 odd mark. Till the time it is not violating that, I have no concern on this stock. In fact, if it starts turning around and if it crosses 1420 odd mark, that's a way where we can consider to go long on this counter with a 1370 to 1380 as a trailing stop.
Okay, we have two viewers out there who have a query on Tata Motors, and I believe both are looking to, are looking at bearish options, because we have Vivek Kanodia, who's looking to add puts in Tata Motors, and we have DN Bhattacharya, who's looking to short Tata Motors. What are the prospects of this, Amit, and what would you suggest? What levels would you keep an eye on here?
I would keep a level of 110. If it is not violating 110, the stock is likely to spend some sideways to marginal pullback activity can be seen in the space. However, if it breaks 110, that's where the closing stop loss is seen for the counter.
Yeah.
The possibility of again moving towards 100, 102 to 100 levels would be quite on the higher side.
All right.
So I would wait for 110 to get violated.
Okay, so that's on Tata Motors. In fact, a lot of queries coming in on the auto side. Amit, not for the series, but for the month of August, we have seen some bit of bounce back. Nifty auto index is up 1.5%, while Nifty is down 1.5%. So one more query is in Ashok Leyland. Vivek also wants to know, besides Tata Motors, can he look to buy any puts on Ashok Leyland?
So Ashok Leyland on the last last week, it has seen some kind of attraction on the pullback side where it has reversed sharply from 58 odd. I would recommend to hold to not trade any position on the negative side unless and until 62, 61 is not violated. If it hangs on above 65, 66, there can be a possibility for further pullback towards 69 levels.
Okay, and one more query from the auto sector, that's Maruti Suzuki. I'm going to try and take a look at how the charts are panning out, because, of course, there has been a little bit of a revival, and then Maruti's again come off over the past few days. But the real question is, what do you do with something like that? Amit's already mentioned that he's not looking at the entire sector favorably, but, we have DN Bhattacharya who's looking to go long on Maruti, Amit. How would you address this?
If you look at the weekly structure of the stock, it's more of a sell on rise kind of structure, where it has violated the critical support of 6,400, and it has been sustaining way below that with pressure on the volumes on the lower side. So I feel till the time 6,400, 500 is not crossed, the counter is likely to witness pressure on every rise. In fact, if it violates this time around 5,900, then I feel it can see another leg of downside towards 5,400 levels on the lower end.
Okay, that's Maruti Suzuki. And just one more query from my side, Amit. You mentioned that the metals have registered negative rollovers. The Nifty metals index was down about 16% in the August series, but I think today there is some bit of bounce back. It's up 1.5%, and a lot of these stocks are bouncing. You've got JSW Steel, Tata Steel, Hindalco, Vedanta. They are seeing some bit of that could be a maybe because they've fallen so much, they're bouncing back on day one of the new series. But if one were to play the turnaround in metal space, which is the stock that you would pick up?
So I'll go with Hindalco, purely considering the intensity what it has showed today. The stock had been struggling in the range of 182 to 172, and in the last 2 days it has broken out above 182 levels, and today it is sustaining above that. So there is some room on the upside towards 192 to 193 odd level, where it can see some kind of a follow-up pullback action.
Okay, so that's the view on Hindalco, which also has some positive development as per Reuters, suggesting that its US subsidiary Novelis, which is looking to acquire Aleris, that deal could get finally a follow-through from the EU. And let's see, maybe on back of that news, Hindalco is seeing some positive moves. Just want to revisit the markets. I think we are, of course, off the highs as well, but off the lows too of the opening levels. So the day's low was somewhere about 10,936. Currently, the index Oh, actually, no, we are in the red now. So there is some selling pressure, which is seen at the top once again. And pull up Bank Nifty as well and check what that's doing right now. As Nifty's given up majority of its gains, Bank Nifty is also just about trading in the flattish territory. I want to mark a couple of individual stock futures. We've already spoken about Hindalco and JSPL, another beaten down counter, 30% lower in August series, is seeing some bit of bounce back. Nalco has bounced back, and a couple of other stock futures from the likes of Adani Enterprises, PFC, and also GAIL, which are seeing some bit of gains. Whereas on the losing side, we discussed NIT Tech, how the futures have been trading at a steep discount. That stock's down about 3% on the cash side. HPCL is seeing cuts of about 3%, and your stocks like Mindtree, Ashok Leyland are seeing cuts of between 2 to 2.5%.
Okay, there you have it. Well, some stocks out there, and markets have resumed their relatively weaker streak for now. Let's wait and watch what the second half of this trading session brings. But on that note, I'm going to take a moment to thank Amit for taking us through all these host of cues when it comes to futures, options, as well as the rollovers that can and have been observed. But don't forget, for more updates on the F&O space, you can also check our website, bloombergqueen.com, specifically the futures and options pages.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this special rollover analysis show of the F&O Show. But stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint for more news and updates.